Theatre is a lot of work. Theatre requires you to give everything to it.
What is the biggest challenge in putting on this production?
The biggest challenge is...
Do you have any example of a time that you tried to apply your acting skills to get what you want?
At the end of my last show, I was burned out.
Hi guys! Welcome to another episode of Passion Project Japan. I'm Theo.
And this is Gia.
And today we have a special guest all the way from Theatre Iridescence. It's Aya!
Hi, hello, hi.
Hi.
Can you introduce yourself a little bit, Aya?
Sure. My name is Aya Kawakami Murray. I am the artistic director and the founder of Theatre Iridescence. I'm half Japanese, half British. I grew up around the world. My first language is English. My second language is Japanese. I have two last names. I have weird hybrid accent that changes depending on who I talk to. So you're probably going to hear me go into an American accent and then go into a rather British accent depending on what I'm talking about. So that's about me in a nutshell.
Yeah, one of the most interesting things, I guess, when we first met you was you mentioned you're British. But like you said, you have a very American accent.
accent.
Did you grow up in America or?
No, actually. So I was born in Japan, and because my father is English and all that, my parents sent me to an international school that was run by Americans. And then when we moved to Singapore, they had a choice between sending me to a British international school or an American international school. I don't know why, but they chose an American one. And then by the time I went back to the UK, they put me in another international school run by Americans.
Oh, even in the UK?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I went to college in America. So yeah, that's kind of why.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you also lived in Singapore?
I did.
A big win for me.
Yes. That's actually where I got my start in theatre, was in Singapore.
Oh, really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So in that American school?
Yes and no. So there was an after-school like song and dance kind of club that I attended. But actually, there was an open cast call. The Victoria Theatre was doing The Sound of Music, and they had an open cast call for all the schools in Singapore. And I had no intention of going to this audition, but my best friend was going, and she wanted someone to go with her. And I went with her, and they were like, well, why don't you try auditioning too? And I did, and then I got in, she didn't get in. It was very awkward between us for a little while. But yeah, that's where I got my start.
And how old were you when you auditioned for
I
this?
think I was 10 or maybe 9. Yeah, I was pretty little.
Yeah, it was pretty young age. And you were in the theatre too, right?
Yes,
In Singapore.
Yes, so I was in the Performing Arts Club, which is basically drama, throughout my shogakko, chugakko kind of period.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I started when I was, I guess, like 8 years old. Yeah,
Wow.
all the way until I was
Same
about
age.
16. Yeah.
Wow.
So
What kind
8
of
years.
what kind of shows did you do?
Nah, it was like those kind of like school plays kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, just really small productions. In Singapore, well, I came from neighborhood school, which is more like grassroots kind of school. So the theatre troupe or like the performing arts club is really small. Yeah, but I attribute a lot of, even now, me hosting and me getting interested in media to that experience of being in drama. Because I feel like I really came out of my shell. I really enjoyed like the stage, performing, talking to people. And that's why I feel like I'm not so scared of public speaking. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess we'll ask you what your life lessons from theatre were later on. Yeah. But for me, that was my kind of journey in theatre. So it's pretty nice to be able to talk to somebody who...
I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about the Singaporean theatre scene because I'm really
wow.
curious as well.
I'm not like a fully into the theatre scene. It was just something kind of I did as like a bukatsu, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, I teach drama at the university that I teach at, and a lot of my students say, well, I'm not going to become an actor. And I'm like, no, this is a life skill. Being able to be a good actor is a life skill, I absolutely assure you. And by the end, they are pretty convinced that it is. And it helps them with things like interviews. It helps them with things like, job interviews and things like that. And whenever you want to convince someone to do something, being a good actor can really be helpful at being persuasive. So, yeah.
Indeed. Do you have any example of a time that you tried to, apply your acting skills to get what you want?
To get what I want, I don't know if I have a specific example per se, but I think I use it a lot for being diplomatic in a situation where perhaps my temper would normally get the better of me. I have learned through acting the ability to take that emotion and shift it into something else. Because, sometimes what you're feeling on stage and what your character is feeling are two different things. So being able to take that feeling and channel it into the character. So right now, Inside, I'm really angry, but I'm going to now try and play an Aya that is not angry, that is calm. And it's actually really helpful in that, learning to do that has been really helpful because I can at times have a bit of a short temper, especially when I was younger. So it really helps me to do that.
Hey there. If you haven't subscribed to us on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcasts, please do so.
So you mentioned that you were like a professor?
Yes.
So you teach drama, but you also have your own theater?
When I first came to Nagoya, I wasn't really thinking about continuing acting or doing any theater because I was just already overwhelmed with trying to adjust to a new place and all that.
And you came here for work? Or?
I did. I came here for work, yeah. And I really love project management, and I was here doing a special government grant project for a university here. And so I was really busy with that. I was overwhelmed with that, and so I didn't really actively seek out theater. But, when you're out and about and people are talking to you and talking about your life experiences, I did mention to a couple people that I had done, acting.
Theater.
I had been doing theater for a long time. And then one of the theater companies, their actress dropped out, I think it was like a month before the show. And that's, when you only rehearse maybe once or twice a week, that's like just before performance time. So they called me and they said, look, could you come in and do it? And, really debated. But I was like, okay, yeah, it's short. 1 month, I can just go in and do it and be done. But I loved it. It was great. It was a really fun experience. The people I met in that show were really wonderful. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do this. Maybe I could do this, and have fun with it. I started meeting other theater people, more and more connections. And I ended up doing a lot of productions for a lot of different theater companies here. All English speaking.
All English speaking.
All English speaking. Oh no, sorry. I that's not true. There was one Japanese speaking one that I did. But as I was doing it, I started to realize that generally speaking, the majority of theater companies here are run by men. Right, predominantly run by men. And that is not a critique in the sense that, I don't think that theater should be run by men, but I just thought, what if there was a theater company that had a little bit of a different perspective, maybe a more female perspective? What about, having a theater company that really does, combine international and local theater, kind of be a bridge for those two? And being half Japanese and half British, I thought, well, maybe that's something I could do. Maybe I could, create a bridge between those two worlds. Because right now, at least at the time, there was very much this is international, English-speaking theater, and this is Japanese theater, and there wasn't much crossover.
Right.
Yeah. There were Japanese people who were interested in eikaiwa, people who would participate in the shows, but what I mean is Japanese theater production staff or Japanese theater professional actors weren't actively participating in English theater. So I really wanted to create that bridge. There was a theater company that started to do that, actually, and I was really interested in working with them. But they eventually disbanded, and so, that niche needed to be filled. And so that further kind of motivated me to create Theatre Iridescence. So the whole point of Theatre Iridescence is to be kind of a place where Japanese actors, Japanese artists, and international artists can get together and kind of stimulate each other, learn from each other, sometimes butt heads, but as a result of that, create something really interesting, something unique. Yeah. So past productions I've had, I've hired Japanese actors to come in and act with us. I've asked people like professional dancers who do traditional Japanese dance to come in and train us in movement and things like that. Like that kind of true melding of the different cultures, I think is really, fusion, is really exciting. If you think about fusion foods, often can be quite interesting and unique. That's kind of what I'm looking to do with TI. Yeah.
I see. So it's basically a bilingual theater that you're running.
It is a bilingual theater, yeah.
So how do you manage to, let's say if you have an act coming, and how do you manage to get people to, how to say, like Japanese actors to act in English, and how for international to also like, communicate with the Japanese actors?
Right. So the best example of this is probably our 2018 production, Medea. Medea is a traditional Greek play, but we set it in Edo period Japan. And in the story, in the story of Medea, originally anyway, Medea is actually a foreign woman who married a man and came to this to, I think it was Crete, to Greece. And so she's a foreigner. So I thought, well, that's great. So let's have Medea, be a foreign woman who married a Japanese lord, lower level lord, and came to Japan. So that we could have this, by setting it in that way, we could have the two languages kind of work together. So the lead actress had to learn how to speak not only Japanese lines, but to learn how to speak like Edo period Japanese. So like Jidai Geki Japanese, which was a huge challenge for her. And my goodness, I have the utmost respect for her for being able to do that, because that was challenging. And then, of course, the Japanese actor who played her husband, when they were at home, they would speak in English. So he had to learn how to speak lines in English. And some of her friends, her close friends also had to be able to speak English. So they did an exchange. They helped each other out. The Japanese actresses would record the lines for the actress, the English-speaking actress to learn, and vice versa. We would have these kind of coaching sessions, and that really created a great bond between everyone. But having said that, we also had a lot of like friction because some of the Japanese actors are used to preparing for roles and getting direction in a Japanese way, and I am a Western trained actor and a Western trained, I guess, trained.
So-called the Western way, so-called. And what do you think is the main difference between the Japanese way of doing theater and the Western way of doing theater?
Okay, so Japanese style theater is like kata kara hairu. Kata kara hairu means like coming from the outside to the inside. So working in a character through its physicality, through the outward appearance of the character's emotions and feelings, and then trying to bring that further inward. So the direction is out to in. For Western actors and Western acting approach, it's in to out, which is that we first analyze the text and truly try to understand the characters, who the character is, what their motivations are, how they are feeling, and why they feel that way. And we do a lot of analysis, and from within we try to build the character. And then, of course, from that feeling, all that analysis, we create the physicality, we create the movement, and the movement comes from within. So when they're polar opposites, right? From without to from the outside to in, from the in to out. So at times, my questions to some of the actors, or me saying, let's sit down and really talk about the scene, and they're like, let's do it, let's just keep doing it until I find it. It caused a bit of friction, but I think there were actors who really embraced the Western approach, and then there were actors who said, this is not what I need, and it was up to me to build and work with them from where they wanted, from what they wanted. They wanted me to let them do it from, outward to within. So I had to respect that. I had to respect them. That was sometimes hard for me because I wanted them to experience what I was trying to share with them. And I had to learn that, no, actually, remember, you created the space to share ideas and to learn from each other. So this is your opportunity to shut up, be quiet, and learn from them and see what you can gain from that. And I have learned a lot from that approach too. Sometimes actors do better working with, the physical aspects. Me too. Sometimes I find that working on the physicality first helps me to understand my character better. So yeah, that's maybe a primary example. But this is not an uncommon experience. Eriko, I believe her last name is Ogawa. She's the artistic director of the new National Theatre in Tokyo, and she trained in New York. And I was lucky to be in the room when she was being interviewed once as a translator. And she said the exact same thing. She said, it was really challenging because some of the actors, the Japanese actors, didn't want to try this approach because it was not what they were familiar with. It's not what worked for them. So she also had to be understanding and work, start from where they were and kind of scaffold.
How about working with international actors and actresses? Is there like conflicts between how they were trained, how they work?
That's true, yeah. Because I guess they're not just, even for, so the main production coming up for you guys is Betrayal, right? And the lead is British and American, right?
Yes.
So there are two different schools, I guess, that they came from.
Sure.
Do you think there's, even with the international?
Of course, yeah. I mean, with every individual actor, there's always challenges. I am also an actor, so I'm speaking, from my own experience. But we're very sensitive creatures. We're very vulnerable creatures, and if we're asked to do something that we're really not comfortable with, we tend to be quite resistant because being an actor, showing your vulnerability in front of a group of people, it's very scary. So one of the things I do try to do, and this is something I've learned through my experience of directing, is to first create a place of really warm safety. We're going to try different things, but you're safe, you're okay. No one is judging you. You're amazing. And, I try to, homeru, that's the main thing, to give a lot of praise and try to make them first feel like they're safe and they can trust me and then I can push them a little bit, But if there's a conflict, it's like any business, any conflict, you just have to sit down and talk and, again, learn to shut up and listen sometimes, I guess.
On that note, do you have any kind of favorite character you like to play? Like, I remember when I was in drama, I enjoyed playing either the character that's really snarky, like the all-knowing, all-seeing narrator type character, or the really angsty, angry character. Because I just feel like it's quite far removed from my personality, so it's easier to be. Well, I'm not that good of an actor, so I don't need to be so nuanced with how I do things. I can just be like one note emotion, like angry, like So, but since you're a professional actor, do you have a certain kind of role that you gravitate towards?
I think it's not necessarily the roles I gravitate towards because, of course, you don't necessarily get to choose the roles that you get to play. People often like me to play the villain.
Okay.
Usually, kind of like the evil woman is the one that I often get, which is easy for me to play because I do it. I've had to do it a lot, so I'm experienced with that. But one of my favorite characters I've played, and I think that's the kind of character I'd love to play, is I played Puck in Midsummer Night's Dream, and Puck is kind of an alien. He or she is not a human and doesn't see the world the same way as humans do. And that kind of like otherworldliness is really challenging to play. And I find characters like that are not something so clear or something that's a little bit removed from reality is really fun and challenging. So I love those. But as a director, I gravitate towards angsty plays that are all about like, you know, humans just like betraying each other, as you know, Betrayal, betraying each other, hurting each other, you know, relationships and connections falling apart. I tend to gravitate towards tragedies in the selection of plays that I choose as a director. But yeah, as an actor, ethereal characters.
Just curious from my side, because I'm not really into theater, or I have no experience being in theater as you guys. So when talking about theater, I guess the first thing that comes to my mind is like Broadway or like New York. Okay, but I've never really heard of like a big community or an industry in Japan. So can you tell me a little bit more about the industry in general, or is there any opportunity for new actors to just come here and like, you know, experience how is it like working in theater?
Tough question. So there is kind of Broadway type like musicals, and that's Gekidan Shiki, right? And Gekidan Shiki is like kind of similar to like Takarazuka also in Osaka, where it's kind of an institution that you enter at a very young age. You go through their school, and once you graduate through their school, you perform, you know, if you're lucky, if you're one of the lucky ones. That's really tough to get into as an outsider, but I'm sure there must be exceptions. Places like the New National Theatre, I know they have like, they're periodically on their website, they advertise for like students who want to come and study. So a lot of theaters offer like a study program where you can come in as a kenshusei and come and try and participate, and maybe if you're really good or you have potential, maybe they'll pick you out. But yeah, most theater companies that I know of that are Japanese have this kind of like apprenticeship system where you go in as a kenshusei, and they, you know, you do really grunt work, you know, background work and stuff. Painting cleaning the floors, that kind of stuff. And maybe they'll, you know, you get to be there in the room and watch and learn from watching rehearsals, and then you slowly work your way up if you're lucky. But again, you know, it's like any country working in theater, it's very difficult to become top. But there's a lot of local theater here in Nagoya. There are lots of theater companies, little itty bitty like theater companies, Japanese theater companies, and they have a wide range of experience, you know. So I think like if you go to the little theater company, like theater spaces, look for the flyers, go and see one, maybe contact them and say, hey, you know, I speak Japanese and I want to try something. Most of the time they'll be like, all right, come and hang out with us and see what happens.
Nice.
On that note, are you afraid that because your plays are bilingual, that you're alienating both audiences, so monolingual like audiences? So not all Japanese people speak really fluent English, and not all international people can speak really fluent Japanese.
Yes.
And so when your audience when your play is like both, you must know Japanese and you must know English. Does that alienate like a whole segment of audience?
This is a very, very good point. So every production I have done since I started has always been a challenge of how can we make the experience easy for anyone to understand. We talked about like having an earpiece, you know, where someone we didn't do it because it was just impossible to do at the time, but you know, having an earpiece with some a range of like Japanese voice actors acting the scene in Japanese on audio while they were watching the performance. We thought about that. We generally use subtitles though. What we do is we subtitle it, and this is actually very common in in theater around the world. I went to see a musical in Thailand once, and it was like a very special musical, very famous musical about the Thai king, and they had English subtitles on the side and up above. So even though I couldn't understand what they were singing in Thai, I was able to read the subtitles and follow it. And we do that. We've done that several times for our shows. some plays, we try to strategically use gentle English and Japanese for example, this play I did, 2-person play called Snow Angel. I played a Japanese prostitute, and my partner, Jono, played a Western client. And through what I was saying in Japanese, I tried to help the Japanese audience understand what he was saying. And through what he was saying, people could kind of understand what I was saying.
That's a delicate balance. Do you write that play or?
That one, no. We adapted a play that was already written to make it bilingual, and we added certain body language, tone, things that I think anyone who's lived in Japan a long time, even if you don't speak Japanese fluently, you can get the gist of what I'm trying to do or say. That was kind of what we did for that play. But yeah, subtitles is the main thing. Subtitles really do help with understanding. Yeah. What else have we done? For a play that I did, the last play that I did, we had 2 casts, Japanese-speaking cast and an English-speaking cast. We did the same show twice, once in Japanese and once in English, and gave a special discount so that if you wanted to see both of the plays, you could. So if you were a Japanese person, we recommend you watch the Japanese show first, then watch the English show. If you're, English speaker, English show, then Japanese show. Gives you, 2 interpretations, but also you have watched it once, so you know what the story is. That's another way we've done it, yeah. I'm still trying to find the best way. But for Betrayal, we're using subtitles.
Where do you put the subtitles, though? Like on the... I'm just curious.
Flashing screen in front of the seats.
Yeah,
or little LCD.
Yeah, it's a good question. Generally speaking, most people. So if there is a stage and the back wall, usually we put it on the back wall, just above the heads of the actors, so that you can see it. You know how when you subtitle your reels, you keep the subtitles kind of close to the person's head so you can see their face while you're reading the subtitles?
Yes.
That's what we do on stage.
Okay.
But I've also done something different where, and I think for this show, Betrayal, what we're going to do is we have a window, and that window turns into a screen. So it'll be a window sometimes, it'll be a screen sometimes, and that's where the subtitles will be. So we're going to try and get people to sit in a certain part that's easy for them to see. Yeah. So that it's kind of integrated into the set and it's not quite so
obvious, right?
Yeah.
Guys, we are upping up our short form content game this year, so if you don't want to miss that out, please follow us at Passion Project JP on Instagram and TikTok. Exclusive content just for you guys. Theatre Iridescence has been on hiatus for like 5 years.
Yes.
Which is, a pretty substantial amount of time.
Sure.
Yeah. So kind of wanted to get the story behind like why you guys went on hiatus for 5 years and then why you're coming back at this time.
That's a very good question. Theater is a lot of work. And theater requires you to give everything to it if you want to do it well. It takes a lot of emotional, psychological, physical energy. And at the end of my last show, I was burned out. And I was trying to finish my doctorate. And my professor was like, you need to do this now or you are not going to get your doctorate. And it was really difficult for me. I remember I think it was like the last rehearsal before we were supposed to go on stage for my last production. And I called my dearest friend and I just sobbed on the phone to her for like, I don't know how long, how many hours. She was amazing. She just sat with me on the phone and just listened to me go, I don't know if I can say I need to stop, but I need to stop. I need to take a break. And she kindly helped me kind of understand that it was okay to take a break. So I did. I took a break. I told everybody, look, I'm sorry. We're going to take a little break. I need to rejuvenate my juices, my creative juices, my emotional juices. I need to finish my doctorate. Finished finished my doctorate. And then the pandemic hit. And then, I worked on just to kind of refresh myself and kind of get myself back into being creative. I worked with a different theater company. I just wanted to try something different, and I found myself again getting into really bad habits of, not taking good care of myself and taking care of my health. And I realized, wow, okay, I need to find a better way. I need to take a bit more time to find what works for me, and also take a bit more time to absorb other people's creativity and kind of refresh my creative mind. I felt like my creative mind was kind of depleted. My batteries were gone. So I went and saw every play I could. I went to different art galleries and just tried to, talk to different artists, be around different people and gain that hunger to do it again. And yeah, it took a long time, but I remember going to see a play in Tokyo and going, gosh, I really miss this. I really, really miss this. I want this again. And then I talked to a couple of my acting friends, a couple of my theater friends, and I said, look, kind of tentatively thinking of starting again. What do you think? And everyone was so overwhelmingly excited and happy, and so many people that I really care about and who I really respect were like, I will be there. I will show up for this. I will come and let's do this together. And I have to say, the crew that we have this time is just so wonderful. It makes it so joyous to go to work and do this every week. Yeah. I realized this time around that I really wanted to curate and cultivate a group of people that energized each other. Conflict, of course. Discussion, of course. We're not all agreeing on everything. That's not exciting. That doesn't make good creativity. But that we're always there for each other. That we have each other's back, and we have a trust. And that, I think, has been the biggest, difference this time around.
But how do you curate them? So do you interview them beforehand? Do you already know them? Have you worked with them? Or?
Yeah, this time around... Oh, no, this is good. This time around, I decided to choose people that I knew and I've worked with, that I have had a solid relationship with. I wanted a real sandbox experience for all of us. So, normally I do have auditions. I normally, and I usually talk to new people and usually try to bring in new people. And we do have a couple of new people, but the core people are people I've worked with for a long time and know and really know that they will bring positivity and energy and passion to the project. Yeah.
When is your show coming?
Our show is June 7, 8, and 9. It's a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We have a Friday night show and then a matinee on Saturday. And so matinee and evening show on Saturday, and same matinee and evening show on Sunday.
Is it both, is it bilingual or one in Japanese and then one in English?
This one is English only.
Oh, English only.
Yeah, this one is English only with Japanese subtitles this time. We're keeping it super simple for the first kind of comeback show.
Cool.
Yeah. And what has been maybe just two things so what is the biggest challenge in putting on this production, or has been in putting on this production, and what is the biggest joy that you've gotten from this experience so far?
The biggest challenge is, again, after a 5-year hiatus, getting people to know us, getting people to know who we are, getting people interested in the show, getting people to come to the show, I think is the biggest challenge. Because we know, after a 5-year hiatus, there's a lot of people who have never heard of us. So it's kind of like starting fresh. Yeah. And, when I first started doing theater here in Nagoya, the community, the international community in particular, was very close-knit. Everyone went to the same restaurants, the same bars, the same events. Everybody was always together, We knew each other. So promoting shows was pretty easy. you go to that restaurant, and then
You go
you
to
say,
Shooters.
yeah, you go to Shooters, you go to Red Rock, you go to the walkathon, you pass out flyers at the, I don't know, those kind of places, right? You advertise on what used to be NAGMAG, and NAGMAG was a very huge, popular magazine that everybody read.
Nagmag? Nagoya Mag?
Yeah.
Nagoya Buzz. Okay.
Yeah, which is, again, right? So I think there's so many people trying to come back into the arts again, but everyone's much more separated into like what they enjoy, as opposed to kind of having this one big expat international community. So getting people to know about us has never been more challenging. So I'm really trying really hard to get the word out and be like, hi, this is us. And it's always been a challenge to differentiate between the different theater companies. There's a few English-speaking or international theater companies here. And a lot of times people will be like, I saw your show and it was blah, blah, blah. And I was like, that's not ours. Oh, but I really like that one. Yeah, that's also not ours. Yeah, this was ours. Oh, okay. That kind of issue. So trying to distinguish ourselves as a different theater company, no disrespect to the other theater companies, just that we're all different, right? And just getting people to come to our show, I think, is our biggest challenge. My biggest joy, on the other hand, has been working with this amazing cast and crew. They're all incredibly talented, and watching them do what they do has been just so energizing. The actors are just fantastic. They're making me cry at every rehearsal, which, doesn't usually happen. But, they really move me with their dedication, and they're just so good. So I really hope people will come and see them, because they really are like the best of the best. Really fantastic. Yeah.
So I'm curious about the economics of running a theatre company, just because you are the creative director, but
Yes.
you're also the business owner.
Yes.
And so, you have bills to pay. Having a Windows/LCD screen is not cheap.
It is not.
Yeah.
No.
So how does the whole business of running a theatre company work?
Right.
Yeah.
Theater in Japan is not cheap. It's not cheap anywhere, but Japan is incredibly expensive. The venues are just like, the prices that they charge are really, really high. So even if you have a full house every night and you don't have a lot of, extra things, it's really challenging to make a profit. So you have two choices, if you want to talk about the economics of theater. You have two choices. One, learn to do everything, right? Get a small group of core people who learn to do everything, so you don't have to really pay people. And that's terrible, right? You want to hire professionals. So, and generally speaking, I try to hire professionals. That adds a lot to your budget. Theater space adds a huge amount to your budget. If you want to if you want to set pieces, and you hire professionals to do that, that costs a lot of money. The choice you have to be able to afford to do all those things is to do a production that has a massive cast, a huge cast. Why? Because every cast member has a group of friends or a group of people who follow them, who love them, who want to go and see their shows. The larger the cast, the more people will come and see it easily, right? What you have to negotiate is, having a large cast is great in terms of ticket sales, but can you get that large cast of quality actors? And I'm not saying, that like not having experience is a bad thing, but if you're not trained, then you're starting from scratch, right? And so do you have enough time? do you have enough ability in the people who are running the production to be able to train that many actors to be stage ready? So having a large cast, very beneficial for ticket sales. But it's very difficult to put on a quality production when you've got a really large cast, because we live in Nagoya, and getting people who speak English and Japanese, or getting people to speak English only, who are good actors, that's not a huge pool to pull from, right? That's just the reality. So if you're talking about it as a business, I'm not talking about like community theater where the goal is to give the actors the experience. I'm talking about as a business, right? If you're trying to make money or trying to make up for all the costs that you're paying for, large cast is the way to go. Quality is more difficult to achieve. The other thing to do is do something very small, with a small space, and try to balance out the quality of the production versus the cost, the output, how much cost money is going out. But again, that's really challenging because even small theaters in Nagoya are very expensive. The theater that we're using now is maybe a little bit more reasonable than a slightly larger theater, but it's not a huge difference in cost. So, and because we have a smaller cast, a lot more work has to come in from us, the production, to advertise and make sure that people come to see the show. So can you do that? Are you confident that you can do that? Are you confident that people will come? What strategies do you have to get people who are not, somehow connected to your actors to come and see the show? That's the biggest challenge, I think. Does that make sense? So balancing out, do you want a high quality production where you have to work your butt off to make sure that people come and see it? Or do you want to have a potentially high quality, but maybe it's kind of high risk production of a large cast that will help you to bring in the people? Yeah.
Butts in the seats.
Yeah. And I'm not talking only about international theater, by the way.
Yeah.
When I was working, because I studied voice. I worked for an opera company in Hiroshima for a while, and I remember whatever role you had what was called a norma, which is how many tickets you have to sell. So if you're a cast member of this ranking, you have to sell this many tickets, and if you don't sell them, you have to pay for it yourself.
What?
Right.
That's
So
crazy.
it wasn't even like whether you get paid or not. You would have to pay for the opportunity to perform.
Wow.
Now, obviously, I don't ask my cast to do that. There is no norma in my theater company,
yeah.
but it is. It's really so. If you are the star of the show, you have to sell a large amount of tickets. So that was a huge thing that I noticed in the at least the opera world, and I was like, oh, that's how they get those people to come and see the shows. So the actors are motivated, the singers are motivated to sell those tickets because they don't want to have to pay for it themselves. And I remember gifting my tickets to people, being like, please come and see this, please. I'm like chorus member number 45, but please come and see it. And they're not cheap tickets. They would be like each of my yen. I'd be like, here, this is for you. This is your birthday present. Come and see me. Come and see me sing. So there's that kind of way. So it's needing actors to sell tickets is not an uncommon thing in Japanese theater too.
Oh, wow.
Right. I know it sounds really strange, but like I've noticed, I remember a Japanese actor who, a professional actor I hired, he was like, okay, so you're going to pay me this much. So how many tickets do you require me to sell? I was like, I can do that? I can require you to sell a certain number of tickets? He's like, what is it, 200, 300?
Whoa.
And I was like, can I get back to you? Because it just had not occurred to me that was the way it worked. As I couldn't imagine telling someone that, they had to sell a certain number of tickets. I didn't actually end up telling him that he had to sell a certain number. I just said, please just try to sell as many as you can. There's no penalty if you don't. But if you can sell 200 tickets, please do. Yeah, so I think the economy, the economic system in Japanese theaters, it seems, as well as theater companies, as well as, I guess, what we try to encourage with our international theater companies is try to get the actors to also help us to generate ticket sales.
Wow, it's very mind-opening for me. I've never. It's like a KPI thing, right?
Yeah.
In a sense that you have to perform well, not just in stage, but also before stage,
As a
prior to
salesman.
stage, like a
But
salesman.
let me just be clear that I do not require this of my actors. I have never ever told my actors they had to sell a certain amount. I usually give them great thanks. Whoever has sold the most tickets usually gets a little special present from
Oh,
me.
the MVP.
Yeah, but it's not a requirement. I just ask them whenever possible, please do try to sell tickets. And yeah, but it's that is definitely a big part of it. That's why I think a lot of theater companies choose to do bigger productions, because it does help to generate ticket sales.
Yeah. So, yeah, you said Betrayal is on June 6th?
7, 8, and 9.
7, 8, and 9?
Yeah.
And so when do ticket sales?
They are on sale now.
Okay.
They're absolutely on sale now. And people can buy them online very easily from our website. We're using an online ticketing system. The system is in Japanese, but we have on the website, if you go to theatreiridescence.com, tickets, there is an English language support where we take you step by step through it. There's a PDF that you can open up and it will show you the website, so you just have to look at them and fill it in. But it's very simple, like putting your name and stuff like that. So I think most people can navigate the Japanese system okay, but we do have English language support for those of you who would like to buy tickets. Yeah, they're on sale now.
And where else can they find Theatre Iridescence?
Where else can they find
Like
theater?
on social media?
Yeah.
Oh
You
yes,
sound-
thank you,
Yeah.
thanks.
You gotta promote.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, we've got for my generation of people, we've got Facebook, we've got a Facebook page, we've got an Instagram account. We are trying to figure out how to use Threads, because I think that's the new one. So yeah, basically Instagram, Threads, Facebook, our website, theatreiridescence.com. You can find us there. We have a YouTube channel, which has some videos of past shows. That's it. Yeah, that's about all that we have social media-wise.
And if you want to follow our TikTok, it's at Passion Project JP. We're also on Instagram, at Passion Project JP. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
At Passion Project
Japan.
Japan.
Yes, and you can also visit our website, www.passionprojectjp.com.
.com.
Yes. So thank you so much for your time, Aya.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you for coming on and sharing your insights.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. And we have some bonus content we're going to film right now.
Yes.
Yep. So if you want, make sure to follow us on our social platforms, because that's where these BTS kind of things are going to be posted, apart from the main episode. So yeah, thank you for your time, and see you guys
See
next
ya.
time. Bye.